I'm Sophie Hartman, 32 years old, and I was up to my elbows in a dumpster behind a foreclosed villa in Berlin-Grunewald when suddenly, a woman in a designer suit approached me. "Excuse me, are you Sophie Hartman?" she asked. I was holding the leg of an old chair in my dirty hands, still hearing my ex-husband's voice echoing in my head, the words he'd hurled at me 3 months earlier. "No one will ever want a broke, homeless woman like you." Yeah, nothing screams architectural genius, quite like digging through trash for something salvageable, at 7 in the morning on a Tuesday. I climbed out of the dumpster, wiped my hands on my filthy jeans, and said, "That's me. If you're here looking for something valuable, this chair leg is literally all I own." She smiled politely. "My name is Dr. Wagner. I represent the estate of Theodor Hartman." My heart skipped a beat. Uncle Theodor, the man who raised me after my parents' death, ignited my passion for architecture, and then disowned me 10 years ago when I chose marriage over my career. "Your great-uncle passed away 6 weeks ago, Dr. Wagner continued. "He left his entire estate to you. Just 3 months ago, I'd still been part of the middle class. I had a home, a marriage, and an architecture degree I'd never really used. My ex-husband, Richard, always told me working was unnecessary. I make enough for both of us, he'd say, as if that was romantic, not controlling. When I discovered he was having an affair with his secretary, everything collapsed. The divorce was brutal. Richard had expensive lawyers, I had a public defender and a little bit of hope. He got the house, the cars, the savings. I was left with a suitcase and the bitter realization that our prenup was airtight. His last words still echoed in my mind. Good luck finding someone who wants damaged goods. So I survived by collecting furniture from dumpsters, restoring it in a small storage space, and selling it online. It was anything but glamorous, but it was mine. Dr. Wagner gestured toward a black Mercedes parked by the curb. "Perhaps we can talk somewhere more comfortable." I looked down at myself. Jeans, stains, dust. "I don't think I'm exactly Mercedes material." "You're the sole heir to an estate worth several million euros," she said calmly. "The car can handle a little dirt. 50 million. The number was so unreal that my mind could barely process it. Numbly, I followed her. During the drive, Wagner handed me a folder. "Your uncle left you his residence in Berlin Mitte, his collection of vintage cars, several investment properties, and the majority shares of Hartman Architecture. The company is valued in the multi-million range." I stared at the photos of the villa I'd only ever seen in architecture magazines, the Hartman estate, Uncle Theodor's masterpiece. "There must be some mistake," I whispered. "He disinherited me 10 years ago." Dr. Wagner's expression softened. "Mr. Hartman never removed you from his will. You were always his only beneficiary. However, there is one condition." "What condition?" I asked carefully. "You must assume the position of CEO at Hartman Architecture within 3 days, and hold it for at least 1 year. If you decline or fail, everything goes to the Association of German Architects." I laughed in disbelief. I've never worked a single day as an architect. I got my degree at 21 and married at 22. My husband always called my education a cute hobby. "Mr. Hartman hoped you'd one day return to architecture, Wagner said softly. "This is his way of giving you the chance." The car stopped in front of a boutique hotel. "You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow, we'll fly to Berlin to meet the board. You have 3 days to decide." I looked down at the folder in my hands, at the pictures of a life I'd once given up for a man who threw me away. The life Uncle Theodor had always wanted for me. "I'll do it," I said. "When do we fly?" Dr. Wagner smiled. 8 a.m. Pack light. Everything you need will be waiting." I glanced at the garbage bag in the trunk holding my few belongings. "Trust me, packing light won't be a problem." In the hotel room, I scrubbed the dirt from under my nails and stared into the mirror. Hollow cheeks, tired eyes, the face Richard had made of me. My thoughts drifted back to when Uncle Theodor had been proud of me. I remembered my award-winning design for a sustainable community center. "You're going to change the world," he'd said then. "Next year, you'll join my firm. Together, we'll make history." Then Richard came along. 8 months later, I was married, and Uncle Theodor refused to attend the wedding. "You're making a mistake," he told me over the phone. "That man doesn't want a partner, he wants a trophy. You're throwing away everything you've worked for." I'd been angry, young, and foolishly in love. We never spoke again. From the start, Richard had been controlling. He convinced me I didn't need a job, sabotaged my attempts at freelance work. My only small rebellion was secretly continuing my education, online courses, trade journals, lectures. When Richard was on business trips, I filled notebooks with designs I'd never build. Once he found them, cute hobby, he'd sneered. Focus on keeping the house in order instead. The next morning, I was on a plane to Berlin at exactly 8. Yesterday, a dumpster, today, on my way to take over a multi-million euro firm. The estate in Berlin Mitte was breathtaking, a perfect blend of classical elegance and modern innovation. A warm woman in her 60s opened the door. Ms. Hartman, I'm Marguerite. I was your uncle's housekeeper for 30 years. I vaguely remembered her. Welcome home, my dear girl, she said gently. Your uncle never stopped hoping you'd return one day. The interior took my breath away, art on every wall, a perfect harmony of old and new. Your uncle converted the 5th floor into a studio for you 8 years ago, Marguerite explained as she led me upstairs. I froze. 8 years ago, but we hadn't spoken then. Marguerite smiled sadly. Mr. Theodore was convinced you'd find your way back eventually. He always said you were too talented to stay hidden forever. The 5th floor was every architect's dream, vast windows, large drafting tables, state-of-the-art equipment. On one wall hung a sketch from my university exhibition. He had kept it all these years. Tears blurred my vision. Dr. Wagner appeared at the door. The board meeting is in an hour, she said. Marguerite had arranged for clothes to be delivered. I chose a navy blue pantsuit. For the first time in years, I felt like the architect I was meant to be. Downstairs, a man in his late 30s waited with Dr. Wagner, tall, dark-haired, calm but observant eyes. Sophie Hartman, he said, shaking my hand. I'm Jakob Stern, senior partner at Hartman Architecture. I worked with your uncle for 12 years. The Jakob Stern, I asked, surprised. You designed the Berlin State Library extension. His eyebrows rose slightly. You know my work. I know the work of many architects, I replied. I may never have practiced, but I never stopped learning. Something shifted in his expression, respect. Good, he said, then you're not just Theodore's charity project. Still, the board will want to test you immediately. Hartman Architecture's offices were as modern and elegant as I'd imagined. In the conference room, 8 people stared at me as if I were an intruder. Ladies and gentlemen, drive. Wagner began calmly. This is Sophie Hartman, Theodore Hartman's grandniece and the new CEO of this company. A man in his 50s leaned back, crossing his arms. With all due respect, he said dismissively, Ms. Hartman hasn't worked a single day in this industry. This decision proves Theodore was no longer of sound mind. I took a deep breath. Actually, Mr. Kramer, my uncle was perfectly lucid. He simply knew this firm needed a new vision, not an old guard clinging to past glory. I pulled a notebook from my bag. Here's a sustainable mixed-use project I designed 3 years ago. I have 16 more books like this, 10 years worth of ideas created in secret because my ex-husband thought architecture was a nice hobby. Kramer flipped through it expressionlessly, but other board members leaned forward with interest. A woman spoke up. Even if your designs are good, running a company requires business sense. You're absolutely right, I said evenly. That's why I plan to rely heavily on the existing team, especially Jakob. I'm here to learn, to lead, and to continue my uncle's legacy while bringing in new ideas. If anyone prefers comfort over progress, the door is open. After the meeting, Jakob approached me. That was impressive, he said. But you just made half the staff your enemies. Really? I asked. He smiled faintly. The half that matters respects you now. Your uncle told me a year ago to help you if anything ever happened to him. He said you'd been buried alive for too long, and when you rose again, you'd be unstoppable. I think he was right.